What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Celtics Talk Podcast. Man, has this been a busy week. Celtics bowing in the first round of the playoffs in 5 games, and then all the changes with the front office. Danny Ainge out, Brad Stevens elevating to the role of president of basketball operations. Sat down earlier this week with my guy, Jeff Goodman of Stadium. Wanted to get his pulse on what happens from here. This was maybe right as the Celtics were making all their big splash moves, but there's a lot of big splash moves to be made. So what happens next? Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier, Marcus Smart. There's a lot of tough decisions ahead. Brad Stevens didn't inherit a very easy job. There's some big questions ahead. Let's get into our conversation with Jeff Goodman. The Boston Celtics season mercifully coming to an end in 5 games at the hands of the Brooklyn Nets, a first round exit. And so we're not going to spend a lot of time looking back, but we are going to spend a lot of time looking forward. And for that, I needed Jeff Goodman on this podcast. I got a chance to talk with you and Bob Ryan a couple weeks ago, and you were prescient. You were like, let's just talk about the future because no one cares about what this team and what's going to happen. But now that you've had 12 hours to digest the 2020-21 season, what the hell happened?
I kind of go, you can use injuries all you want, and we will, because obviously they had more games missed than any other team. But ultimately, is it going to, even if they had not missed as many games, were the pieces going to fit anyway? I'm not convinced. Now, again, if you had Kemba, Jalen, Jason, and Robert Williams, aka Bill Russell, maybe if they had a chance to play most of the year together, yes, maybe it would have been different. I still say the trio of Kemba, Jalen, and Jason Tatum does not work great together. Ooh. That's what I say. And again, maybe Kemba, 100% healthy Kemba, 28-year-old Kemba might be different. But he's not 28. He's 31, and he looks like he's 35.
Yeah. So let's just dive in right there. I don't want to spend too much time. It's well documented what went wrong with this year. And I agree. You can throw COVID, you can throw injury woes. Even if they were at full health, I don't know if they're getting past this Nets team. Now, there's a world where you don't endure all the ups and downs of the regular season. You draw the Hawks or the Knicks instead of, and then maybe Embiid gets injured and you stumble ass backwards into the Eastern Conference Finals again. That's a legit possibility. I think we learned that their flawed roster. And again, that's why we'll focus on the future, because Danny Ainge has a lot of wrongs to right this offseason. But I think Kemba is the number one domino that falls. And I'm curious what you say, because I know how much you love Kemba and what your respect for him as a person. I think he nurtured the growth of the Jays, got them to a point probably quicker than any of us could have expected in terms of being all-stars and being the faces of this franchise, because unlike the last point guard, he was willing to do that. But another postseason where, he just wasn't himself, and you feel awful that it's a bone bruise and not necessarily related to the injury. But is there any confidence level that they can get him to a point where he's upright every game next season? And if not, do they have to look to trade?
First of all, can I say, Kemba's the best human being, the best teammate ever. So anytime you get me saying anything negative about Kemba, I cringe because I love him.
Right.
If there's one person I would want, and my daughter's older now, but to babysit my daughter when she was younger. If you said one NBA player that you want, it would be Kemba. Because why? He's always happy. The dude is always smiling. He's so respectful. In so many ways, he's the anti-Kyrie. He is. But you know what he's not? He's not Kyrie talent.
No.
He's not. And we kind of forgot that he was putting up big numbers on a shitty team. And then you add in the knee injuries. And when you're not able to go in 2 critical games against the Brooklyn Nets after you've won a game, right? And you've got a little bit of hope. They weren't going to beat them. But if Kemba played out of his mind and Tatum played out of his mind and Marcus Smart wasn't going 1 for 9 from 3, you feel like maybe they had a chance to get another game and make it an interesting series. And instead, Kemba can't even get out there. in the biggest games of the year. What does that tell you, Chris Forsberg? That he's never going to be the old Kemba again. You're going to have 2-week stretches where you get the old Kemba, and we saw that this year. But more often than not, you're going to get unreliable Kemba, and you don't know what you're going to get from game to game, from week to week, from month to month. Now, having said that, and you know this, like, what can you do with him? What can you do with him? He's making $36 million next year, and then he's got a player option for $37.5 million the year after. He's not turning that down. So you have Kemba for 2 more years at max money. So you got to pray. You got to pray that Kemba is healthier more than he's not, and he's able to play in the games that matter. Because otherwise, like, I don't know what you can do to move Kemba Walker. I just don't know who takes it.
So a couple things to unpack there. I agree wholeheartedly with everything you said. I think even when they signed him, there was questions about how does he fit alongside the Jays? Like even before they started this really blossoming, and they were good when he got here, but like they've clearly gone to another level. I think we knew they were going to have the ball in their hands more often. They were going to have elite creation ability, and you probably needed more of a spot up shooter and a creator. And that's not what Kemba is. Kemba's a pick and roll guy who wants to get downhill and get to the rim, and with a bad knee, that limits his ability to do that. So the equation has changed. The fit has changed, and there's long-term concerns from my view about everything the Celtics do from now forward has to be built under how are you making the Jays better? And I'm not necessarily sure Kemba does that. Now, there are instances, there are times, or especially when they're struggling, when like Kemba can be old Kemba. And I think he got a little bit better this season at morphing his game. He definitely was deferential at times. He started going in the corner, which he had never done in his career. And so I think he can morph a little bit. The question is health. And this team desperately needs availability and dependability. And right now, I just don't know if you can count on that.
Kemba can't shoot it consistently.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. He's streaky from 3. So, you know, to me, you need, like you said, either a guy that's going to make shots and open up the court spacing wise, or a guy that's going to be a pass first player. And that, and I know we're not there yet. We can get there, because I think this is a topic that not enough people talk about. I feel like when I watch Jalen and Jason play, I feel like it's like throwing them in the park for the first time. I just don't see that. I don't see any chemistry. I don't see anything.
All right, wait. We're getting way too far down the road. I want to get there, but let's finish up on Kemba.
Yep.
I agree. The $36 million contract makes it extremely prohibitive to find deals that work. Are you moving him to Oklahoma City with draft capital and bringing back Al Horford and something?
Why? Who's your point guard then?
Right. Well, Marcus Smart, probably. I know. We're going to get to Marcus in a minute too. Do you move him to Dallas for Porzingis, and you just say like 2 injury prone guys, maybe a change of scenery, maybe that shakes it up?
But why would Dallas want Kemba with Luka? Like, that doesn't fit.
Exactly. And then you have a situation where the Dallas benefit is they get off 1 year early because Porzingis is under contract for 3 more years. But I don't know if that's any better for where these teams are going. So
you're going to have to take another bad contract if you trade Kemba.
John Wall. See, so there's just not a lot of options out. So it's funny because all my, I don't want to call them casual Celtics fans friends, but my friends always say like, "Oh, we got to move Kemba. We got to move Kemba."
Everybody says it.
I get it.
Right.
But and I go, give me the deal. Like, what is the deal you're making that
would you do Kemba? Now, John Wall's at like a
$40 million,
insane amount of money.
Yeah, 42 million, something like that.
And again, it's not like John Wall's the model of health here. And he's not a great shooter. He's a ball dominant guard. The one thing I will say with Kemba is, again, the injuries aside, the shooting, whatever, like Kemba is the perfect person to have with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Maybe not the perfect player, but the perfect person in a sense that, again, he's not a leader. He's not like a leader, right? He's not a vocal guy. You know that. Like, he's not a rah-rah, like, get in your face guy, but he is all about, as you said, elevating the Jays. That's all he cares about. Like, he doesn't care about himself and his numbers and any of that. And that's why I call him the anti-Kyrie. He just cares about making those around him better. So I do feel like if you said to him, hey, we need you to be more of a distributor, a facilitator. He would try. He's never been like that since I've known him in AU ball. That's not been him, right? Like he can do it at times, but that's not inherently what Kemba Walker is. He's a scoring point guard because he really had to do it at UConn and in Charlotte for years. He had no choice. So I think it's hard to change your game, but maybe he should watch some Derrick Rose film and watch how to change your game.
Yeah,
you know?
Point. So I think if you could tell me right now, like I promise you, Kemba Walker is going to give you 76 games next year, and he's going to be healthy in the postseason, and he might not be a 20-point per game scorer, but he's going to morph his game and find a way. I'd be like, okay, that's probably the most prudent path
17
forward.
and 7.
Perfectly fine, because Jason and Jalen, their stat line should beef up and defer some of that scoring. Like you need Kemba to embrace just being a playmaker, using that attention he draws. Like he's still a threat when he's out there, but the key is he's got to be out there. I do think that's why the most likely path forward is he's here, because I just don't see the deal that materializes that helps you now and gets you like quicker back into the game of getting a third star to pair with that group. So I think ultimately you at least go into next year just crossing your fingers, and that's a terrible spot to be in, but that's just what the Celtics are at right now with health wise. So, all right, let's move the conversation forward, assuming Kemba's back. I think that makes it tough decisions with Marcus Smart and Evan Fournier. So just in a vacuum, are you re-signing Evan Fournier? Let's say the market dictates $18 to $20 million a year, because there are going to be some teams that miss out on the free agent crop. Are they going to overspend to get an offensive talent like Fournier based on what you saw in the playoffs? Do you want him back?
I like him. I do. I don't know if I want him for 18 million. But I do like him. I think he fills a major need.
Yeah. And
if you trot out a starting five, right? A starting five of Kemba, Fournier, the two J's and Time Lord. Like, all right, let's go. Let's see if they're healthy. Like, again, I don't think those three guys fit together perfectly, but you would still say if there's health there, but I just don't trust there's going to be health with Kemba, and I don't know what the hell to think of Robert Williams in his health. I don't get it. I don't get it, Chris. Like, he's too young for this shit. Like, I'm almost 50. Like, all right, I play a slow pitch softball game. I ache. I don't know if I'm going to be able to play the next one. This dude's like 20. What is Robert Williams now? 25, 24?
24, I believe.
24. He's a freak. Like, come on, man. Like, get out there and play. And I know he tried to play through some of it. And I get, like, turf toe does suck. I've had turf toe. It sucks. But I don't know. I mean, so I guess with Fournier, it would depend on the number and what else you can get. But you have to find another shooter. You have to me.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing for me is, like, as much as I'm a little bit leery of his defensive deficiencies.
I don't think he's that bad. I think he's average. He's average. He's not great. But, like, look at some of the best scorers in the league. They're horrible. Now, again, they're elite level scorers.
Right.
But, like, most good scorers suck defensively. I think he's average. I don't think he's horrible. I don't think he's good. I think he's right down the middle.
The Nets hunted him a little bit, and I think they knew they could put him in some tough situations. Now, the Nets are a beast.
Exactly.
Like, three of the best offensive players.
They can hunt anybody. They can hunt Marcus Smart if they want.
It also is a little bit easier to hide Evan Fournier when you have a healthy Jaylen Brown and Tatum and Smart maybe on the floor. Maybe with Kemba, it gets a little bit more difficult because teams want to pick on his size. The problem is, again, do you pay $18-20 million for that player? Maybe the number comes down. Like, maybe that's not. Maybe I'm overvaluing the market.
Bad market though this year, so he's probably going to get it. He's probably.
I would think, yeah. Like, I mean, it's just based on size and scoring, but he's exactly what the Celtics needed. And I understand why Danny Ainge made that trade. Didn't have to give up a whole lot. 2 picks. You did already give up 2 picks to get the trade exception for Gordon Hayward, so it's like 4 second-round picks, and now you've got a bridge to cross here. The problem for me is if they don't recoup any value, if he just walks and goes somewhere else, which I don't think would happen. I think they would sign and trade or do something. But are we just talking about another traded player exception? Are we back in the same thing I just did for an entire year, trying to figure out who the next Evan Fournier is? So I'm a little bit leery of that. But we shall see what happens there.
I mean, again, there's no easy answers here and how to fix it.
Yeah.
Because to me, Tatum's the most untradeable guy in the league, not named Luka.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've said it, the only guy I would trade Jason Tatum for right now, when you put everything together, age, salary, whatever it is, contract, talent, is Luka. He's the only one, period.
Wow.
I think he's that good.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm the biggest Jason Tatum fan there is on the planet. I am. I think he's only going to get better and better and better. And if you run more, like I think the game has slowed down for him. He's got to become a better passer, but you also have to have guys that can make shots. Like, who's he passing to right now? Right? I mean, let's be honest. Who's he passing to? You want him to pass? No, you want him to score. And he's gotten so much better about initiating contact and embracing contact. Remember, like a year ago now, a little more, a year and a half ago from now, he was scared of contact. Like, he didn't want any part of it. Now he's like, he loves it. You can tell, like, he loves getting the line, and he does it so well. So I think Tatum's just going to get better and better and better. So I think he's an MVP candidate in 2 years. Legitimate MVP candidate. Jalen, I love how far he's come, all of it. I'm just not ready to anoint Jalen as like a consistent all-star yet. I'm not. I think he's a fringe all-star, and I think he's the one guy that commands value. And it's very, very, very high right now. I think there are teams around the league that could look at Jaylen Brown as a number one guy. And you got to find that team and see if something matches up with that team, in which maybe you can get, again, the name I've said over and over and over is Bradley Beal. And
of course.
I feel like people in Boston don't give Bradley Beal any credit because they don't really watch him.
Oh, so I think it's the opposite. I think they like, that's the one deal that everybody keeps bringing up. They're like, oh, why don't you just trade Kemba and go get Bradley Beal? And I'm like, well, I mean, that's not how this works. But, I get where your head's at. And certainly part of what they do, everything, again, has to be built around how do you make the Jays happy? So, but especially Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum would love to play with Bradley Beal. So can I see a world where they pair up somewhere? Yeah. Absolutely. Like, that's going to be on their checklist of things to do. Do the Celtics have the assets right now and the talent to make that deal? I'm a little bit leery of that. I don't see Washington, especially after the way they play.
Why not? If Bradley Beal goes to him and says, you know what, I've had enough. I've been here. How many years has Bradley Beal been in Washington?
I mean, it's a while now, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's done a lot of losing there. Right.
But he's now they've given him this glimmer of hope this season. And what if Embiid doesn't come back? What if they win a couple of games in this series? Like,
I guess. So he's been in Washington for 9 years.
Wow, 9 years.
9 years. Usually 9 years. That's it. If you're not winning a high enough level, I know they made the playoffs and again, like, they did well down the stretch. But like, they've given him nothing. Like, think about what he's had. He's had John Wall, who, again, nobody loves playing with. And now you got Russ, who even less people love playing with. I mean, I think, again, the Beal-Walt thing was a train wreck early, and they made it better towards the end. But, like, Russ, yeah, everybody respects how hard he plays, but he's tough to play with. So if you're Bradley Beal and somebody said to you, hey, if you demand a trade, you'd have a chance to play with Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker instead of Russell Westbrook, what do you think he'd say?
I mean, we know what he'd say. He's got to force the issue. He has to pull the Anthony Davis.
But everybody does it. Everybody does it these days. If you want to do it, it's so easy. Have Mark Bartlestein, your agent, just come out and pull a Rich Paul.
Yeah.
Just call Rich Paul. Hey, Rich, how'd you do it again? Oh, okay. All right. So we just got to go out publicly and leak it to Woj or Shams and okay. All right, he'll be gone.
Yeah. And then just say you're not going to. I mean, they can't do what Anthony Davis did and said, I'm not going to Boston and force the issue. But he can say, I'm not going to the Lakers or whoever else would be in pursuit.
Exactly. Pick some teams that you want to look at. Pick 5 teams that you're interested in. Boston's probably one of them. And how many? Listen, if you're Tommy Shepard, the GM of Washington, how many better offers are you going to get for Bradley Beal than Jaylen Brown?
Sure. The question is the question is the Celtics have to decide is like, I am intrigued by where Jaylen is going. I don't think he's going to be, he's never going to be the scorer to Bradley Beal's level, but defensively and really what he means to this city right now in terms of the voice he has, being sort of the conscience of this team a little bit, and especially in the last 18 months with all that we've been through, I think there's value there too. But ultimately, talent is king. And as we saw,
you know what Beal does that Jaylen Brown doesn't do on the court? He can move the ball. Like in Washington, he hasn't shown it because he's needed to score. But Bradley Beal, to me, could average 7 assists a game. He could average 7 assists a game if you said to him, hey, you know what? We don't need you to score 30 a game now because you got Tatum and you got Kemba. So now we need you to be more of a facilitator and move the ball. And Kemba gets a little better at moving the ball. And we know Tatum, again, the relationship with Beal, to get back to a point I made earlier, like those two, I'm telling you, would play off each other so well. And that is not something you've seen enough games with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Do they play off each other that well?
Not right now. They need to focus. That needs to be like, those two need to get in the gym this summer and be like, how do we make each other the best players possible?
They've been in the gym every year. They've been together for how many years now?
Yeah, but now I think it's a little different because now it's all of a sudden like, before I think it was always about individual success for them. Like Jaylen had to get to that all-star level. Tatum needed to establish himself as an MVP candidate. I think if nothing else, and I think Scal made this point last night, and I thought it was a really good one, that Jason Tatum now knows like he can't do this alone. Like he just went up against 3 really good players, and it's like, as good as I am, I need everybody else around me to be good.
I think he knew that all along. I think
you know that, but whether you come to grips with it is a whole nother thing. And I think he's got to sit there and say, man, when Jaylen comes back, all of a sudden I see a lot more one-on-one. Okay, well, how can I, when they do send that double, how can I kick it? Right. Can we get a better supporting cast around us and let us flourish?
Yeah.
What happens at the center spot? Tristan Thompson back? Do they extend Rob Williams if they can find a manageable number?
You have to extend Rob Williams. I mean, you have no choice at this point. And again, I'm kind of the in-between guy on Robert Williams, right? Like his upside is ridiculous. I covered his first tournament when he blew up was at the Wooden out in LA. And for Texas A&M, he wasn't a highly ranked guy, and he was awesome. I remember coming out of there saying, like, this dude's going to be a lottery pick. To me, you've got to run the race with Robert Williams now and see where it goes, unless you can get something great for him, which you can't. No team's going to, like, he's going to be a secondary player in a trade. So it's not worth trading him now. His value isn't high enough to trade him. You've got to try to build it up. And then if you want to trade him, because it's a little bit of a tease, then you can trade him, but you got to get his value up. So I think he's untouchable at this point based on what you can get in return for him. Okay. Now, again, if you told me, hey, you could get, Bradley Beal and Daniel Gafford for Jaylen Brown and Robert Williams, I'd listen. I'm not, again, I don't want to get rid of Robert Williams, but if it brings me a Bradley Beal, I'm listening. That's all I would say. If it's a deal, I'm listening. Marcus Smart to me it's a dilemma. It's a real dilemma because I don't know what he gets you in return either. I don't know the value. Again, I think certain teams are going to have value for Marcus Smart, right? Like, but again, the more you watch of him, like he's got to fit a specific need that a team wants, right? Like even like a Clippers. I could see like the Clippers wanting a guy like Marcus Smart. They're thin right now. If you added him to that team and, they've got a couple scorers, obviously with Paul George and Kawhi. But again, what are you getting back? Are you getting back enough that it's going to really change the dynamic of your team that much? I don't know. Yeah. So to me, I just don't know if Marcus Smart is going to be enough to change where the ultimate result lies this year. Like, I think you're probably back in the same spot. And I know a lot of people say, well, let's see, if you trade Smart, see what you get back. And then you still have the 2 J's and Kemba. I don't know. And Tristan.
So this is in a nutshell is what this, like what we're going through, what the poor Celtics have to decide, right? Like there are no easy decisions this offseason. We can sit here and say, oh, they need to overhaul the back end of the roster, but there are some serious questions about the top end. And this might be more of a put on your hard hat than we expected. Like this might not just be as simple as get this team healthy because the rest of the East is so much better. And you look at the way Philly has made improvements and what's shaking up their front office and coaching.
Chris, they fit. Like that's the bottom line with like Philly now fits. They put shooters around Embiid and Ben Simmons, and Tobias has been awesome. And, I give Morey credit. He's done a good job giving Doc a team that fits together. To me, the Celtics don't fit well together. Even when they're healthy, I don't think they fit well together. They don't have enough floor spacers. They don't. Now, if you bring back Fournier, again, if you want to run it back with those 5 guys, I don't think it works that much better. Like, I think you're still looking at a team that falls short of going to the Eastern Conference Finals, but it probably depends on some of the other teams as well, what happens.
On Thursday, Trenni got a chance to catch up with Wyc Grousbeck on Early Edition and discuss the changes in the front office.
Joining me now is Celtics owner Wyc Grousbeck. And Wyc, you just heard Brad Stevens say there yesterday, you were sitting next to him, that both of you had a discussion and you said this move was best for the team moving forward. Why was this the best move going forward?
Well, I feel great. Back to your earlier segment, which I did watch. This is a person, Brad, with really a great basketball mind and an unbelievable work ethic. And I've seen it and witnessed it for going on 8 years now, I guess. But he's been at the war room table and he's been throughout side by side with Danny for 7 years of experience. So he has very real experience. If he had an accurate job title, it'd be assistant GM or consulting assistant GM or something, some very minor title, but he was at the table and Danny would bounce every move off of him and take suggestions and ideas. And Brad would watch hours of tape. And that's partly because Brad works till midnight or 2 a.m. sometimes. And there's just lots of late night stuff going on. So this is something that Brad is his continuity actually in our team to some extent. Team meaning front office team, and it's a promotion of Brad from coaching to a different role, but one that he has had significant and I would say very positive experience in.
Brad is, though, at heart a head coach. You said yesterday, though, this is a franchise that has 2 separate positions. Was there ever any thought given to allowing Brad Stevens to have a dual role of head coach and general manager? And if no, why not? Why do you feel those 2 jobs should be separate?
Well, yeah, that's a bunch of good questions. But I just go back to Brad is a coach at heart. I think Brad is, we'll find out. But what I've found out about Brad over the last 8 years is that he is a competitor and a team builder, and he just burns with a desire to be the best and bring the best out in other people. And that sounds like just words, but you look at the people of the players, he's coached up and helped have career years, and now 2 young all-stars under his coaching regime. You give Jason and Jalen tons and tons of credit, but I think they'd be the first to give Brad and the staff a lot of credit as well. So Brad brings the best out in people, and that's what he burns to do. And so I think coaching has been the way he's expressed it. He was a player in college before that, not necessarily a notable player, but a player in college. He then became a coach, and now he's becoming a president of basketball. I think there's a common thread there of being a team builder and a competitor and wanting to win.
So you said you listened to the top of the show, so you heard the Jeff Goodman sound. You heard what I had to say afterwards. So what do you say to people when you say that, he is a team builder, he is someone who wants to be here? What do you say to people who think that he is a coach at heart and will want to go back to that role sooner rather than later?
Well, one thing that I've noticed about Brad, about Danny, about many of the great people I've been privileged to work with is that they're people of their word. Brad has accepted eagerly this challenge, this new opportunity. He's very excited about it. I think that came through yesterday. It's come through in the times that I've spoken with him about this. He's ready for this step. He and his entire staff really are going to have to adjust to the new change. But he's in and he's all in. So it's easy to write different things. And I love the fact that people cover the team and have different ideas, and I have no problem with it whatsoever. I'd like to just primarily, we will be judged by our win-loss record. And I'm hopeful and really confident that the Stevens era will be a positive one.
The timing was so surprising to everyone, and it seemed like Brad, the decision really had been made a few months ago. Did you guys, Wyc, talk to anyone else about the position? Were there any candidates that you had in mind or interviewed or talked with, or was Brad your guy from start to finish?
So the way this played out, Danny raised this topic and said he'd given it much thought, and it really wasn't something to discuss, but it was something to try to all reconcile with. And he raised that maybe a couple of months ago, in maybe late March or March at some point. And so that was then on my mind about what to do about that. And it was a secret because it was a personal decision and we didn't want to disrupt the team anyway. And we weren't going to start a search or anything like that, probably until the end of the year, until the end of the season. So for just continuity of the team reasons, and because Danny is finishing out this season and just wants to be done at the end of July after the draft, it just made sense that it was just a very private conversation between just a real handful of us. And then I was talking to Brad about the search that would have to end up being mounted in July, August for a new president of basketball. And then I thought of asking him if he would be interested in putting his hat into the ring. And then it unfolded over a couple of conversations that he had talked to Danny about that off and on for years, just in passing. He'd been thinking about it and it really resonated with him. And so he then raised his hand and said, I would like to be considered. And since it's an internal promotion and somebody I've known for 8 years, and it then results in one person leaving results in one vacancy at a very high level, head coach, it all made sense to not let Brad be recruited by anybody else, go anywhere else, but to take his initiative, his excitement into the mix and say, let's make this move. So I believe firmly this is the best thing for the Celtics. There are many other probably great ways we could have gone, but we would have gotten to a search in August if we hadn't promoted from within.
How much, if at all, was Brad's contract status a factor in that? He is under contract with you guys. He signed an extension last year through 2026. Was that a big factor in making the decision?
No, it didn't even come up or cross our mind. In my mind, and I don't believe his mind at all, if this is just who's the person that we wanted to have. This is a partnership position because although ownership in this team doesn't get involved in daily basketball decisions, and I've probably said 20 times, and I've thought a million times that I don't have the basketball mind that a coach or a general manager has. I have a fan's perspective on the team, and I remember that every day, or try to remind myself of that. But the basketball professionals that we hire, are in charge, and we're going to, back them. And we're going to find the right one, irrespective of whether someone has a few years left on a contract or not. I mean, that's you just have to find the right person, and you have to be partnered between operations and sort of a team ownership, just the way the decisions are ultimately made, but 99% of the decisions are approved.
Well, one of the decisions that's going to have to be made sooner rather than later, Wyc, is finding a new head coach now that Brad Stevens has moved on from that position. What are you looking for? What would you like to see Brad Stevens do when he goes out to hire a new head coach?
Well, we're not going to put criteria out there. It's a fair question, but I'd like to reserve the right to reserve my right to not answer it. I want a winner, and whatever background that coach has remains to be seen. I'm excited about hiring a new coach, excited about bringing in a new voice directly with the players, with Brad overseeing things and being in the mix. And Brad, as I say, is a team player. Danny feels that coaching experience is really important in the president job, and picking a coach will be Brad's next primary responsibility. And I'll look forward, as will Steve Pagliuca and my dad and so on. We'll look forward to connecting with that coach and in the coaching process. But really, it's going to be Brad trying to find somebody that he believes will lead this team forward.
Brad said yesterday that he kind of got the feeling that maybe a fresh voice was needed in that locker room. You have two budding stars on your team in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. How much do you go to them, Wyc, for input? I mean, I don't think you're going to let them say, hey, here's two coaching candidates. You guys pick which one you want. But how much will you communicate with them about what they want as players to lead them in this next chapter?
I think just to answer that generally, I think the really great thing about what we built here, and it's Brad building in as well as Danny, with me maybe trying to set a tone as well from a distance, but it's an easy communication with those guys, and it's a comfortable, and they've each the ink's barely dry on Jason's contract. I mean, and Jaylen's is a year old or whatever it is. It's it's recent times, and so they've re-upped with us and we've re-upped with them, and we feel like we're in it together. And now they're both all-stars. And so anyway, it's not about accolades, but it's about the relationship that's been built. And Brad has a very, very strong relationship with both of those players. And we all have that relationship with them and their families, a deep relationship. So I feel great about having input from players like that, and I'll look forward to it.
You know, Wyc, if there's one thing we always hear about Brad Stevens is that he's this stand-up guy. He can't lie. He doesn't have a poker face. He's such a genuinely good person. But he's going to have to make some tough decisions coming up, including possibly getting rid of players and moving on from them, guys who he has coached and become close to them and their families. What about Brad behind the scenes that we don't see gives you confidence he can have that killer instinct and make those really tough decisions?
Well, I think if you had seen Brad more at half times of games where we might have been down, or if we watch his, if you saw him more in practice and the way he relates, and if you follow just even in the games, benching players and not playing players and changing lineups around and based on who's doing well, I mean, he's got unquestioned control of the team, and people have flourished under it. He's got a steely determination to do, and he expressed it, to do everything he can to take us back to Banner 18. And we want to get there. And he wants to get there as badly as anybody. And he came here from Butler, having recently signed an extension to Butler. He came for the chance to be, part of a great, great Celtic team. And he's been part of some very, very good Celtic teams. And he and I and all of us want to get all the way with this team. And he burns for that. So he'll do what's necessary.
All right, great, Wyc. Well, if you ever want to give us that unfettered access at halftime, I mean, we would love it as your broadcast partner. We think that would be fantastic. Wyc Grousbeck.
Let's put it into the mix.
All right, great. I love it. Wyc Grousbeck, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. It's been far too long.
All right. Thought maybe after the Celtics season ended, I'd be able to go get my golf clubs, play a round of golf, but seems like it's going to be a pretty busy offseason. So as we get buckled up and ready for what's ahead, here's my thoughts. I think there's 5 big questions for the Celtics this offseason. And a lot of it we got into with Jeff, right? What happens with Kemba? Can they find a way to move that contract? Does Brad Stevens now in that role want to move Kemba Walker? I think he likes the personality and that, but can he trust the health? And so Brad knows better than anyone what it's like to not have him available. Will he be able to find a trade that could give the new coach a little bit more dependability in that position? Or does Brad stick with Kemba and tinker on the fringes, which might mean number 2, Evan Fournier. What happens there? Are they going to pay big money to bring him back? They need size. They need shooting. He offers that. But if the price tag goes $18 to $20 million, that adds a lot of stress to a ballooning tax bill for a team that isn't necessarily a guaranteed contender. So I'm interested to see if the Celtics will be willing to splurge. They can always move that asset, sign and trade, maybe bring back a trade exception. I know people are sick about hearing about that after Gordon Hayward, but it would be valuable as Brad Stevens starts to put this roster together deeper into the future with a year to use that. Number 3, what happens at the center position? You guys know I want to extend Robert Williams, but is Tristan Thompson back? I think there's some tough decisions there in terms of, paid Tristan good money, $9 million for 2 seasons. Bogs down the offense a little bit, but does have the playoff history. Brad loves his veterans. So is Brad willing to lean on him in that situation, even though he might not be the perfect fit next to Jalen and Jason? I'll be interested to see how that plays out. What happens at the back end of the roster? So Brad, again, come back to this. He loves veteran players. So is Carson Edwards, Grant Williams, Shemi Ojale, are these players back? I would say that that's the more likely area to be overhauled in terms of Brad looking for players that the new coach can depend on and know that if there's an injury, he can lean on those players. I think that's going to be the biggest thing for Brad Stevens this offseason, identifying those players that when he was on the sideline, he really wished was on his team and putting them on the bench so that they can have more trustworthy players to lean on. And you don't run into a situation like this year where every game you had an injury and you didn't have someone that you felt comfortable throwing in there necessarily. And then the last thing is just Marcus Smart's future. One of the few trade assets you have, reasonable contract, but again, if you keep Kemba Walker, I think there's some very tough decisions with Fournier and Smart. I can't wait to see how it all plays out. I can't wait to see how Brad handles this new role. Again, a tough new spot for Brad Stevens. All right, while we wait for the next big moves to drop, I need everybody to go like, subscribe, check us out on the YouTube page. Just so much content up from this week. And just like, if you thought that we were going to go into the off season and things were going to downshift and be quiet, well, that is absolutely not the case. We'll be here all the time, breaking down whatever comes next for the Boston Celtics. All right, we'll catch you next time on the Celtics Talk Podcast.